Hi, everyone. This is Bob Sorrentino from Italian Roots and Genealogy. Be sure to check out our blog and our YouTube channel and our newsletter and our great sponsors, Your Dolce Vita, Italy Rooting, Phil Italy, and Abbiativa Casa. And my guest today is Gina Ciambella.
Ciambella,
So
yeah.
welcome. So welcome, Gina. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So where are you located now?
I am in West Bloomfield, Michigan, which is in Oakland County. It's a suburb of Detroit, a really nice place. We love it here.
Oh, that's great. You know, I don't, boy, last time I was in Detroit was probably, geez, 40 years ago or more. But I used to have a friend in Dearborn, and it was really a nice place.
Really nice. Yep,
Yeah.
we go there often. We
Um,
have grandchildren there, actually.
oh, nice. Very nice.
Yep.
Very nice. And then there's the what really impressed me there. I forget the name of the place where they have all the old buildings rebuilt. I can't remember the name. If it's still there, who knows if it's even still there? But they had like the Wright brothers thing and stuff
Oh,
like that.
Greenfield Village.
Oh,
Yep,
yes, yeah,
Greenfield
yeah.
Village. Yep, yep. We love it there. My children have a membership there, and the grandkids love it there. And yeah, everybody loves Greenfield Village. And they just did the old train station in Detroit, and they had Diana Ross come back and sing for Motown, and they just redid the Motown USA building, and that's our claim to fame is Motown and automobiles. So we love it. We love the music here and the people here. So.
Well, I'm sure it's changed a lot because I was there in 1977, so I'm sure they've had a lot
Oh
to.
yeah, it's changed a lot, but thank goodness for that.
Oh, that's great. So, uh, you know, when and why did you start researching your family?
I just kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about my roots, and my siblings and I were talking about my sister's planning a trip to Italy, possibly next year. We still have family in Naples and in the town where my dad grew up, which is called Tiano, and it's Tiano's next to Caserta, which is about 20 miles from Tiano, and that is a main line from Naples right directly to Rome. You can take a train directly there. It takes about an hour and a half to go there. So everybody knows Naples when you say where you're from. And my dad was born and raised in Tiano. He came over at 27 years old. Yesterday was 27 years that we lost him. And so I just started last year kind of digging into ancestry and heritage, and when we were growing up, my siblings, my dad always used to talk about his parents, particularly his father. His name was Antonio. Antonio was an only child, and he lost him during World War II. My dad was extremely young. He was the oldest son and of four children. And during the war, my dad and his siblings were in a trench, and he always told us the story that his father went back to the home, small village, and walked back to the home to check on a pig so that the Germans wouldn't take it, because it was late October, actually October 31st, we were told. And he was going to make sure the pig was okay and it didn't squeal, and he was going to go feed it so the Germans wouldn't take it because it was their food for the winter. And that was when the Germans killed my grandfather right at the door of his house. That was the story. Well, all of a sudden, I put in my grandfather's name, and up comes all these articles about him. I was actually searching, to see, when he was born and anything on his parents, because I knew about my grandfather. And I shared with my siblings. I'm like, oh my gosh, Grandpa didn't go to the house to feed the pig. I said, Grandpa actually fought the Germans off in the war. It says here on this paper that he was actually killed by them and killed during, the time that the war went on. And his name is written on this paper, this document from the army, along with 7 other people. And my siblings were like, "You're kidding. Do you think Dad knew?" I said, "I don't think Dad knew. I think that was the story they told him because he was so young and they didn't want to traumatize him. He was already traumatized." And my father heard the people in the village screaming, "Antonio Ciambella, Masada, Masada, Antonio Ciambella." And my dad was going on 15 years old, and he had a stray bullet had hit him in the leg. The bullet never came out of his leg. He always had a gunshot wound in his leg that had healed. And he got picked up by a concentration camp truck right after he heard his father had died. And they made him get on the truck. And my father, from the ages of 10 to 12, lived with monks because he was naughty. And they put him there to learn and to study. And so my father knew 5 languages because he studied with the monks. So he got on the truck and he overheard people talking, and he understood what they were saying, that they were going to take him to a camp. So this is October 1943. So my dad said there were 2 little girls on there about his age, and he tried to get them to get off, and they were Polish girls. And he said they would not leave the truck. So when the soldiers stopped about 300 kilometers, he said, to go get gas, he jumped off the truck and he hid behind a tree. And 2 nuns found him, and they put him in a hospital, a church hospital. And he was full of bed bugs and sores, and he was gone for about 3 months. He said his mother must have thought he died. They brought him back home. By then, they had buried his father. And, life went on. His mother actually, I have a picture of his mother actually. I believe I sent you that his mother had to wash the uniforms of the soldiers to make money. Later on, they opened up a little gas station during the war, but she washed the uniforms of the soldiers that killed his father. And he always talked about him with such grandiose, stories, and how much he loved him and how great he was. And it was very traumatic for him. In fact, he never liked Halloween when he came to America, and would not really condone us celebrating it. He'd let us go trick-or-treating, but he despised the holiday because that's when his father died. So, and he never let us have a Christmas tree because it was a German tradition. So those kind of things went along with it. But, so I was just amazed at the history and started researching the Barbera line and the battle and put it all together. And I was like, oh my gosh, my grandfather died with 17 bullets in him. And they basically destroyed him. And I realized he was part of the anti-fascist group that developed throughout the war that tried to save the town of Tiano from.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
It really is. And my father was he was just a little guy, 5'6", and but he was just such an incredibly brave person to have come over to Italy with nothing. He had a suitcase, 2 pairs of pants, 2 shirts, and a pair of shoes. That's all he came over with. And he raised a family of 4 children, and my mom never worked, and he was a bartender in the restaurant business and was a fabulous cook and just made a life for himself here from absolutely scratch nothing. And, we were all so incredibly proud of him. But now I think I know where he got his gumption from,
Sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what year was it when your grandfather got killed?
We'll be right back.
Experience Italy like never before, traveling with a scheduled group or create your own bespoke tour with friends with philitaly.co. Pack your bags and follow Phil. That's www.philitaly.co.
No one, my dad was only 15, going on 15, so we never met any of our, grandparents on that side. And then I went back to Italy in 2005. I took my oldest son, and I met all my relatives there, and it was so incredibly emotional. And now I stay in contact with them.
But you didn't know that story when you went, right?
No.
Ah.
And I haven't yet shared it with my cousins there. I don't know how they'll take it or if they'll be destroyed by that. So I want, I really wanted to research more and get a handle on it, because it's all still very new to us, and see if I can find out anything more through the government and through the paper research. And my health has been pretty awful. I had to retire early from teaching, and I had cancer and everything. So I've been homebound quite a bit since my trip to Italy shortly after that. But it was just an amazing discovery. Like my dad wanted us to know that since he's been gone, he found all this out, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to know I found this out, so I want you kids to know the story I told you wasn't the story I knew." And it makes me feel like now that he's reunited with them, that they know all the answers. I always believe when you go, if you've gone to heaven, you find out the truth with everything. And I believe he now knows what really happened, and he just wanted us to know too.
Well, yeah, no, and I believe that things you find things quite strange sometimes, the way things work out and how you get information. Um, I had hired a professional genealogist to help find my father's family, because I couldn't find my great grandfather or his father, and it was about a year, and they hadn't gotten back to me, and I was just getting ready to tell them, look, if you can't find anything, just tell me. And my cousin, who lived with my grandparents, passed away, and 2 days later, I got this whole dump of information from them. So,
oh my gosh.
So somebody poked somebody someplace.
That's chilling. Yeah. Somebody connected with somebody up there. Right. So we're thankful that we know that much. I would love to find out. I've been researching to find out my grandparents' family, but finding that out, I wound up finding out all these cousins that my grandmother had, and that they're all in Tiano, and I was researching my grandmother's side because I couldn't find my grandfather's side, and I came upon this article, and this person looked just like my dad when he was young, and it turned out to be my cousin who was murdered, and it was all over these papers, and I'm like, I showed my brothers and sisters. I said, "Who does this guy look like?" And they're like, "Where'd you find that picture?" I go, "It's all over the newspapers in Italy." I said, "Who's this guy look like?" And they're like, "That's Dad when he was young." I go, "Can you believe how much this guy looks like more like Dad's kid than we do?" And they go, "Who is he?" I go, "He is our grandmother's great nephew." And they're like, "You are kidding." I said, "Unfortunately, he was like viciously murdered in 2014. And his father owns this wonderful restaurant outside of Tiano called Bacala. And he's a highly successful restaurateur, like written articles all about him." And I said, "Can you imagine somebody looking so far removed, looking so much like our father?" And so I stumbled on all these relatives I didn't know that are on our grandmother's side. And it's just been a wonderful connection, and been able to, now with technology, you can converse with people and everything. So it's just been just amazing. And we always say how much our father would have loved to have had this technology to call Italy and FaceTime and He used to get up, he was a bartender, and he used to get home at 3 o'clock in the morning every night. And that was 9 o'clock in Italy. So he'd wake up with his loud voice and call Italy. And my mom would be like, the kids got to go to school. Why are you doing this? And he's like, this is the only time I can call my family in Italy. And he would be so happy to have talked with them. And, back then it was so expensive to make those long distance calls. But that was his only connection to his family back then. And he just missed his country so much, but his family just kept him here. He wanted to go back so bad. And he did in 1988. And that was the last time before he passed in 1997.
So did they say why he came here? Since the whole family was
Well, he married my mom. My mom lived in Detroit. She was an international telephone operator for Ma Bell, and her parents arranged a marriage for somebody else in Italy. And she traveled all the way on the Andrea Doria to Italy, and she met the guy, and the guy didn't like her. After all that, she took this big, huge trunk for 10 days. It took her to get there on a ship. And when she got there, the guy said, I don't want to marry you. So here she had a bridal shower, everything. She's all arranged. She took her wedding dress. The guy said, no can do. So her uncle was from Tiano and said, I know these girls who have a brother. I think I could set you up with him. My dad already had a girlfriend, kind of almost close to a fiance. He met her. He felt sorry for her. And his sisters were so devious, they knew if they got my dad out of Italy, they would inherit the house and everything else, because back then, the son got everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they managed to get him out of there. And my poor dad, he was on leave for his mother's funeral. He had a great job for the government. He was on leave for his mother's funeral. He went back to his job. They saw the wedding ring on his finger, and they said, I thought you took time off because your mom died. He goes, I did. My mom died. So he goes, but you got married. He goes, yeah, I got married too. And he goes, They said, you're fired. So he became jobless. My mom came back to America. It's a whole nother story. My mom came back to America. It took my dad almost 3 years to get here. And he couldn't get here through all the paperwork because he spoke so many languages. They thought, this was 1957. They thought he was a spy. Or communist. So my mom had to hire a lawyer, get the paperwork done. He came in, and my grandmother hated him. She just hated him. Why did you marry this guy? This is not the guy I set you up with. So she called the NIS on him. She tried to get him sent back to Italy, and it was just a mess. And he decided that a year later, he's like, this is not working. I can't stay here anymore. Your mother is just horrible. So he said, it's just call it a wash. Let's break it off. I'll go back to my country. You go back to work. So my mom drove him to the train station to go to the airport, and she's crying and crying. My dad says, don't cry. It's okay. It'll work out. Everybody has their own life. She goes, I'm not crying because you're leaving. I'm crying because I'm pregnant. 4 kids later, he left 3 other times, and every time she got pregnant when he came back. So he says, I can't afford to leave anymore. So he decided to stay.
That's wild. That's crazy.
They were married for 43 years. Talk about two people so unlike each other.
So why did your grandparents feel that they had to arrange a marriage in Italy in the first place?
Well,
because it was like 1950.
My grandparents were from Italy too on my mom's side. They came through Canada, and my mom was born in Montreal as she was 9 months old, and she came into New York, and then they came to Michigan. So they were old school. My grandma was 29 when she got married, and she was just very old school. She never fully learned English. She died when she was 87, born 1900, and so she just wanted to arrange my mom's marriage. She was the first girl. By the time her last girl was born, my aunt said, you're not arranging anything for me. But my mom was a dutiful daughter, and she never dated in her life and never had a boyfriend, and that's what she was going to do. And she wouldn't say no to my grandma, and she went over there, and that's what happened. And again, my dad felt sorry for her, and he went through with all that, and then he came over here, and it was just a mess. Just a mess that, if my grandpa had lived, if he had never done that, there was no way my dad would have. I am here due to the roads less taken, so we all four are. And so my grandchildren are, my children are. It's amazing the destinies that that time lays out.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
your mother's side of the family, they were for the same town too?
My grandma was from Abruzzi, so and so she met my grandfather Luigi, which is a whole nother story. But my grandparents were both from Tiano, my dad's side. Yeah, yeah, and there's a bunch of Ruggieros on my grandma's side that are all still there. But yeah, my grandpa was an only child, so I still am struggling to find his information or where his parents were from. Or he was an engineer on the railroad. He made very good money, and but then they lost everything. But I still got to visit their house. I was able to go back because my aunts never married one of my aunts, and she still lived in the house that my dad lived in. So I was fortunate to see it and visit it. And, they were very poor and didn't have much, but Tiano's a beautiful town. In fact, that Judge Frank Caprio, he's from there. He's right from the same little town. And yeah, it was beautiful. I was fortunate to see it.
Yeah, those are some wild stories, that's for sure. So I was going to ask, I was asked, did you find anything way back that would like really amazed you? But like, you don't have to go way back to have these amazing stories.
No. He was such a blessing to all of us. And what amazed me about him the most was that he was such a joker. He always had such a great attitude and such an uplifting spirit. You could not be in a room with him not cheering anybody up. I mean, people went to the bar and walked away laughing.
So did your grandmother come around after a while after,
No.
You saw that? No, even after the kids, nothing. No.
No, it was always a struggle. It was always a struggle. Some years they went for years without talking, but my dad always tried his best with the relationship, but no.
What about and how about with you guys?
Some years we had a grandmother, some years we didn't.
Oh, boy,
when she passed, we were talking to her, but there were years that I didn't see my grandmother, and that was the only grandparent I had. That's why my grandchildren are so blessed. They have all these, when they have birthday parties, it's like 50 to 100 people that show up, and they're so loved and happy and lavished with gifts. And my oldest grandson, Enzo, he loves these war stories. He wants to be president of the United States, and he's only 7, and he just loves to hear stories about Italy, and he's just so enthralled with all that. And the history is just amazing. And it's not even that far back. I mean, I'm first generation. Mm-hmm. And, I'm just amazed at how my dad would be so proud of how far his grandchildren have come and his great grandchildren. And, he was so he took nothing for granted. And that's what I look at this world today. I was raised that if you had a plate in front of you and a roof over your head, you were blessed.
Yeah. And your grandmother just, I guess you don't know, but she just didn't like him. That was it, huh?
She never liked him. She was so disappointed in him. And my grandfather Luigi, and my dad came over, he loved him. He worked for Chrysler, and he was getting ready to retire, and he wanted to invest his retirement into my father because he was such an amazing cook. But my dad didn't have the business sense coming from Italy. So he said, Joe, you cook, I'll run the business part of the restaurant. And my dad didn't have a driver's license coming over here, so he would drop my dad off at the restaurant that he worked at, and like at 4 o'clock, and then come back and pick him up late at night. Unfortunately, my dad came in July, and in September, my grandfather didn't look so good. He dropped my dad off, and the story was that my grandfather, when he walked to the garage, his hat came off his head 3 times. So in Italy, that means your spirit's trying to leave you. And he drove my dad to work. 6 o'clock, the phone rang, and my grandpa was gone. He had a
Wow.
massive black widow heart attack, went upstairs to bed, didn't eat dinner, said he was going to go lay down. He never woke up. So
Wow.
I never met him either. He died in his 50s. So, yeah, my dad always said my grandmother killed him living with her. But, my dad spoke his mind, and she didn't want anything to do with him. So she was left alone. My uncle lived with her till he was like 35, 36, and he got married. But yeah, she was a difficult person, rest her soul, and my mom could not say no to her.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
suppose
that's
that's not unusual from that
right.
era, I suppose.
Nope.
And I've heard a lot of the old wives' tales from Italy, but I never heard the one about the hat blowing off 3 times.
Right, right. But
That's
that's
a,
how he used to told it. He goes, he'd pick it up, it fell on the ground. He picked it up, it fell on the ground. Yeah.
that's crazy. That's something. That's something.
And my
Um,
dad adored him. He adored him.
so now have you done a DNA test at all?
No, I haven't. My sister has, and she's got a couple people that she's connected to, but I have not done one of those.
Uh, yeah, it's interesting. And your sisters, could be completely different from
Right,
your makeup.
right.
That's for sure. We did it, and my kids are adopted, so we all did it. I just wish I had asked my mom to do it, because they say the more people that do it, you get a better sense of things. Um, and so now you're still on the hunt, yeah, for
I
people.
yeah, I've had a block, and it's so frustrating. And then I wanted to do that citizenship thing because I actually have my parents' marriage papers, so I have that. I don't, the actual, not copies, the original. And I think it would be pretty easy to go ahead with it, but I know people say it's not as easy as you think it is to get the citizenship. I would love to do that. My siblings and I would love to get citizenship, but I don't know how hard that whole process would be to go through.
Yeah, well, you're closer, so it wouldn't be as probably as hard as you think it would be.
Hmm.
Only because you're first generation, and plus you still have cousins in the hometown. So
Right.
with the commune thing and stuff like that, if you need papers from there, it would be really a snap. I mean, that's the most difficult part is finding that stuff in Italy, but if you have the original papers, getting their birth certificates if they were both born if you have contacts there, they
Right.
could walk into the comune and get that stuff 1, 2, 3, and you won't need see here for all the papers that, like in my case, I'm almost there. I almost have everything. But
Oh, you're
I
you're trying to do it yourself.
no, I'm using a lawyer there, and I'll tell you why. Well, a couple of reasons. One is I'm 73, and I can't wait 5 years to get it.
Right.
The other thing is, if you do it through an attorney there and go through the courts rather than waiting for the council, uh, um, they could do up to 10 people at one time
Oh, okay.
if they have the same thing. So, for example, if your siblings and your children, and even down to the grandchildren, they could do them in one swoop.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
which you can't do through the consulate.
Oh, okay.
So that's a big plus. Thing is with the paperwork here, like my parents' birth certificates and their marriage certificate and all of that, you have to get, you have to get that. Then you have to get another piece of paper called an apostille, which
Right.
is the certification from that this is really a real document. Then you have to have all of that translated.
Right.
So with the since you're so close, your grandparents and your parents' birth certificates of marriage, if it's all in Italian, that's one quick thing that you don't have to do. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, it'd probably be easier for you and your siblings than it would be for someone that's, like in my case, my parents were born here. I had to prove that my grandparents naturalized or didn't naturalize or naturalized afterwards, so you don't have that issue.
So
So
do you have to only go back one generation, or would I have to go back to my grandparents as well?
you have to go back to your grandparents as well.
Oh, okay.
But you only have to do one. You're only doing one side,
Right,
so it depends on which one is easier, whether it's your father's side or your mother's side.
right, right.
Um, but you do have to go back to your grandparents. But like I
Hmm.
said, if everything's in Italian and you don't need all that apostille stuff,
Hmm.
it'll go much quicker. It'll go much
Right.
quicker. Especially if you go through there. The other way to do it in Italy too is who could do this, but if you spend, 45 to 60 days there, then the process is quicker too. But
That'd be nice.
yeah, I would love to be able to do that. But
My,
I
my cousin
decided,
has a bed and breakfast in Tiano, but um, I'm sure she'd let me stay no matter what. But yeah, she's wonderful. She has a beautiful house that her mother built for her, and I've been there before. But I mean, that would be great. I could just hang out there as long as I wanted to. You
yeah,
know,
well, I do that.
yeah.
I do it that way if it
I'm
were
sure
me.
she'd let you come there too, Bob. She's
Yeah,
a great cook.
I was originally going through my father's side, and then they said, in Naples, it's going to be much more difficult than going through my mother's side from Puglia and Torito. So,
Uh-huh.
uh, and then when we went there last year, we met them. We met a guy who's got really close connections with the comune there. And
Uh-huh.
he said, whatever you need, you have. And,
Oh, nice.
when it comes time because after you get the citizenship, then you still need to go to the comune and get your birth record there. And they said, don't worry about, as soon as it comes through, we'll take care of it. 1, 2, 3. You don't have to worry about it. You're a citizen of Torito, a son of Torito. So don't worry
Oh,
about
wonderful.
it. So they were all very, very nice. But yeah,
I'm sure.
I would say in your case, you could probably do it really pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd love that because I would love for my grandchildren to have the opportunity if they wanted to go to school there or live
That's
part-time
the
there.
that's the best thing for
Hmm.
my kids are in their 20s, so um they're done with school and all of that. But
Right.
for the grandchildren, I mean, it costs nothing to go to school.
Nothing. Right. And it's ridiculous over here how much it costs.
Yeah, and
And
if you ever wanted to retire there or whatever, then you get all the
right.
rights.
Or stay part-time or anything, you know. Yeah, we were looking at some places over there and just chip in and stay and even just take turns staying at somewhere. But yeah,
Yeah.
that would be wonderful. It
Yeah, I have a
looks
friend
beautiful.
who moved there 5 years ago. She got her citizenship, and she's for all intents and purposes an Italian citizen. And
Wow.
she gets every right. She can vote. She gets the health care, all of that kind of stuff. Um,
Awesome. That
and
would be awesome. Europe is beautiful. Yeah.
well, especially Italy. I mean, I would just
Oh
love to
gosh.
sit on a mountaintop up there and just forget about everything that's going on.
Right. Eat a dish of pasta and hang out.
Yeah, and the pasta over there doesn't make you, it doesn't put a lot of weight on you. So,
Right.
I mean, their
Oh,
food, I say this all the time. They're Italian, that is Italian food. But that's not the same as the food here. It's 4 or 5 ingredients. That's all they use.
right. And everything is grown with all these pesticides. Like over here, it's terrible.
Yeah,
My oldest is starting to grow a lot of his stuff in his backyard because it's just so bad for the kids, you
yeah,
know. Yeah, the soil is so. And I lived in Europe for a year, and in the Netherlands, and the food tastes completely different. the produce is completely different. And everybody is so much more content with so less because first of all, you can't afford it. I mean, space, you live in so much less space. You don't have as much, but it's about the atmosphere of your life. It's not about the things. That's what's so beautiful. They get together in the evenings, they socialize. Everything's about going out and walking and being together and visiting. It's about community. It's about what everybody has, not what you have. And I just absolutely loved that feeling. And you don't feel judged, so much as and it's you offer what you have, and that's how I was raised, and when someone knocked at your door, everybody ran to the door. Now it's like people are like, don't answer it. The kids nowadays, they don't answer a phone call. Even my youngest son is like, he's in the Navy for the last 10 years, but you're like, don't you answer your phone? That's what we used to do. We used to run when the phone rang. We used to fight when the phone rang. And it's like a whole different feeling of humanity is taken over the world. And I always say, Jesus must be up there crying how people treat each other, because it's just a level of indifference that I have never seen. And it's uncomfortable to me because I wasn't raised like that. Everything was, go get him this stuff. Or if a neighbor came by, go get him something. Right? Kids run in and go get him something. Now it's like, don't talk to them.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And like you said, we lived in England for 2 years. So I can relate to some of the things that you're saying. And it's different when you live there, of course. But, even, back to the food again, we were driving past a store, like a fruit store, a vegetable store, whatever. And the driver said, you see this stand? I said, yeah. And he said, they don't need refrigerators because everything's gone by the end of the day. Tomorrow morning, he goes and gets more stuff.
Right.
That's how fresh. I remember my wife and I talk about all the time with the milk. Remember, milk used to last like 3 or 4 days. Now it lasts 3 weeks.
Yeah,
So,
what's wrong with that?
What are they putting in there? That's making it last 3 weeks. It's not supposed to last 3 weeks.
Right. The dates on them are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we wonder why people are so sick.
Well, yeah, I think we know why. But they put in Europe, they don't put all those dyes in there. They don't put they don't use all those pesticides.
That's why you can't find the
preservatives.
same foods. You can't find the same
That's
foods
right.
here as you are there, and when I first got there, I left a lot of my stuff by accident at home. So I'm like, oh, I got to go get my makeup. And I couldn't find the same things because they don't allow them there. They don't allow talc powder. They don't allow just the same kinds of chemicals, and they're against it. That's why they live a lot longer and they're a lot healthier. They don't have much, but they live, but it's the quality.
Well, yeah, and they have plenty. I mean, we just when we went there both, the last few years twice, people are genuinely happy. At least they seem to be to us,
They are. Yeah, the stores are closed on Sundays because you're supposed to spend time with your family on Sundays. But people that come from America get mad because they're like, I can't get anything. You just adapt. You get the stuff you need before.
I'll tell you, I say that all the time. I miss that more than anything else. The fact that, when I was growing up, everything was closed. They only, the small grocers were maybe open up for, I think they could open from 12 to 3 or something like that. But all the supermarket, all of that stuff was closed.
Right.
And so you didn't, you did your shopping on, another day or something like that.
Right. That time was reserved for being together.
Yeah.
And now the days are way overfilled with activity. You can't even breathe. You can't even get together because everybody is so busy with other things. So our priorities are definitely out of whack. My husband and I talk about that all the time. And so when I don't even think it gets through to these kids because they're so used to it. This generation is so used to it. They don't stop and enjoy people because their lives are so full with activity. And so you just don't even miss each other anymore because you're not together. You don't even know what you're missing.
They sit around the table with phones.
Yeah. It's so true. That is so true. When you are together, everybody's on the screen.
Yeah.
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 Well, that the town just north of one town north of us, it's kind of like I don't know if religious town is the right word, but anyway, it was founded as like a camp for I forget the denomination, the Protestant denomination, but anyway,
Uh-huh.
they would all the beaches along the Jersey Shore, most of them now, you have to pay a fee to go onto the beach. And
Hmm.
they'll open it like the fee goes from like 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Before 9, it's free, and after 5, it's free. And this town, for 100 years, would not open the beach on Sundays till noon. Well, somebody had to make a big deal out of it, and now they have to open the beach at 9 o'clock.
Right.
It makes me nuts, that stuff. I mean, there's another beach
Right.
500 yards to the north or south. Just go
Right.
there, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Everybody's got to have their way. If it bothers one person, nobody can, just shut up about it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, that's the way it is. It's one squeaky wheel.
And of course, we don't live there, so it's hard to say. I'm sure they have their issues over there too. But you get, like you said earlier, you get the sense that people are a lot happier. I mean, when we were in Bali, at night, you felt different. You felt there were kids, as young as 10, 12 years old, along the seashore, and people in their 80s
Right.
along the seashore, just sitting there, enjoying the view, enjoying the weather, enjoying the food, whatever. And you felt it was serene.
It
I
was
guess that's
serene.
all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You know,
You feel
uh,
like that a lot in a lot of those places where you travel. The violence isn't as big of an issue too, like because in a lot of places in Europe, guns are they're not allowed, like you just feel like somebody's not likely to have one because it's not allowed, so you don't feel like there's going to be an attack on you. Where here you feel like I'm nervous taking my grandchildren places because I'm like, oh, we're in a crowd, who knows what somebody's got,
hmm.
nowadays, even in the store or the mall or anything. It's so nerve-wracking. And there's just too many attacks on people in the United States, and nobody seems to even care. We've become numb to it.
Well, and
And
that's why, like, one of our favorite places was Sheila in Calabria, and it's just like nobody's. I mean, where I am, there's nobody in this town either. But it's just yeah, it's just kind of like I said earlier. It's just kind of a serene type of thing
mm-hmm,
where people just walk down and they go to the restaurant, and
mm-hmm.
it's different. Of course, Naples and places like that.
Naples is
You have
not
to
the
watch
best place to
yourself.
be.
You
Right,
have to watch
right.
yourself a little bit,
The bigger
but
cities, sure. Rome, yeah.
that's no different than any place else, I suppose.
Right. But there's so many beautiful villages and countrysides there that are just wonderful places to be, and hopefully they'll stay that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Let's hope so. Well, they're trying to. I keep trying to tell people they need it over there, that they need to make it easier for us to become citizens, because we'll go there and spend money. So
Right. Yeah, and absolutely, and establish some residency there, and then the country will be. Maybe they don't want that. Who knows? But I don't see why not.
no,
As long,
no.
as long as you're connected to the country, I don't see why not. So, so that's my story, and I'm going to continue researching and hopefully, continue the legacy. Is what I don't want my children and grandchildren to lose the love and passion that my parents and grandparents had for that nationality. Because now, everybody's like, what does it matter? And I think it does matter. I think cultures bring a lot of flavor to life, and I also think that knowing where you came from keeps you strong in who you are and grounds you in knowing other people from other places.
No,
Yeah.
I agree 100%. And that's, that's why I do this kind of stuff, because it's important for us not to forget where we came from, wherever you came from. It's just
Yeah.
important. Well, Gina, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you taking the time. Fantastic stories,
Oh,
really, for sure.
thanks. Thanks for what you do too. That's really special. And I know it's a lot of work. You make it look easy, but I know it's a lot of work in sharing people's stories. They're so enjoyable and they're inspiring. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okay.